episode of the Grace Over Grind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Laci Robbins of Robbins Nest Consulting, a learning and leadership development firm located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Listen, I am so excited to be able to connect with you on today because we are continuing our conversation all around sustainable leadership. And if you did not grab the first episode in this 5-part series, you're going to want to go back, pause the tape here now, and grab number 1 when we are talking about the 5 steps of sustainable leadership. But on today, for today's pillar, what I want to discuss with you is the second pillar of sustainable leadership, which is setting non-negotiable boundaries. Hold the horse. Setting non-negotiable boundaries. Listen, I don't know about you, but in the world that we live in today, it seems like there are rewards for overcommitment. There are rewards for burning yourself out, working the midnight oil, right? Burning the candle at both ends, putting your key cliche here. And there seems to be like all of these awards for, or even acknowledgement of overcommitment and the constant availability. Now, if you've ever found yourself, you're thinking, oh my goodness, she's talking to me. Yes, I'm the one who is responding to the emails at 1 a.m. or sending the emails bright and early at 4 a.m, whatever the case might be. Boundary setting has become both radical and essential as a leader. So for mid-sized businesses, nonprofits, individuals who find themselves in various fields, you need to understand that it's just personal wellness. It's not just solely a personal wellness tool. Setting your boundaries, deciding for yourself, where am I going to draw the line? But it's a strategic leadership imperative, and one that I think we should get into. Here's the first misconception that tends to find its way out there, that once you start to set boundaries, you are actually putting limits on your leadership. But I would argue that that could be further from the truth. When you're starting to set boundaries with regards to your leadership, what you're actually saying is that you desire to protect your time. You're actually saying that in this second pillar, in our series on sustainable leadership, you're tapping into your representative Maxine Waters, right? Protect my time. This is so important. You need to keep in mind that not only are you protecting your time, but by setting boundaries, you're also protecting your energy, and you're also establishing your authority through non-negotiable boundaries. So as a leader, I want to remind you, take the time to start to set those boundaries in advance, right? How do I do that? I start communicating with my team early on that boundaries are bae. Boundaries are key and they are important to me, and they do not take away anything from my leadership. So in this particular episode, I really want to get into 1, what is the cost for boundary-less leadership? And then 2, how can you start to kind of spring back? And then 3, what we can do to help. All right, so let's get into it. Well, first and foremost, we need to keep in mind is if you've ever felt you're constantly in meetings, constantly answering late night emails, or saying yes out of guilt rather than necessity, or saying yes, even worse, out of fear because you don't want to disappoint who's in front of you. Guess what, sis? You are not alone. Listen, here's story time. Once upon a time, when I first began my role as a nonprofit executive, I found myself wanting to focus on the big movement was inbox zero, right? That was my goal. My goal was to ensure that at the end of the day, I had nothing left in my inbox. I was able to respond to everybody. I got back to everyone that needed to get back to. And what did that lead to? That led to me literally sending out emails 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night, because I had to get it done. I had to push forward. Well, I had a board member who literally pulled me to the side and she said to me, are you expecting people to respond to you at 1 and 2 in the morning when you're sending these emails? If it's after 10 o'clock, are you expecting people to literally respond? And of course, my answer was no. I wasn't looking for people to respond. For me, it was really about wanting to get the work done, right? I wanted to ensure that I was getting everything that needed to be taken care of because I wanted to have a fresh start for the next day. And that's what I started to try to communicate with this board member. But she really did a great job of reminding me, if I'm not looking for people to respond back to me at 12, 1, 2 in the morning, why in the world am I sending the emails that late? Eureka, right? So she brought up a really valid point, because in me doing so, the only thing that it did, it led me to being more exhausted. And nobody wants an exhausted leader showing up for work the next day, right? So if you've ever felt yourself in that constant cycle of answering late night emails or saying yes out of guilt or even fear, listen, you're not alone. I too have found myself there, but also work with countless mid-sized company leaders, individuals who are leading nonprofits, other individuals who are find themselves, cuties in corporate, right? Company leaders who are excellent at strategy. We know strategy like the back of our hand, but we're exhausted by poor boundaries. We're exhausted by always and chronically saying yes. We're exhausted by giving more of ourselves. And when we look at the patterns, here are some of the things that we started to notice in the Robbins. This is what we've learned. Number one is that individuals, when leaders don't model boundaries, the team burns out as well. Because think about it. If I'm a leader and I've sent you a late night email, or I've sent you a late night request, or I've asked you to stay beyond your normal scheduled day, and you do it out of compliance, maybe you too are experiencing fear, or perhaps you're worried about the impression, or you're trying to climb this corporate ladder. So, yes, I'll just go ahead and do it. You then start to also burn out. So, not only is the leader burnt out, but then the entire team is burnt out. And now the organization lacks effectiveness. So, we need to understand that by setting boundaries, you're actually starting to model something effectively for your team. Here's the second thing that we've learned in our research when it comes to exhausted teams and how they show up. Number two, when everything is urgent, nothing is strategic. If you've ever found yourself saying yes to everything and everything became a priority, and it's almost kind of like playing a game of whack-a-mole, right? You find yourself doing a little bit over this, and now here I'm over here, and now here I'm over here, but you're not winning the game. You're not winning the opportunity that's been set before you, because literally everything has become urgent. And so Grace of a Grind listeners, this one's for all of the parents, aunties, mentors, and big sisters out there. If you have a girl on her way to grades 5 through 9, I want to personally invite her to join me for Lead Her Academy, a 1-week summer experience created to build confidence, communication, and leadership in our next generation. As a mom and leadership coach, I knew girls need more than just motivation. They need mentorship, vision, and above all else, a safe space to grow. And that's exactly what happens inside Lead Her Academy. Visit now, robinsnestconsulting.com/leadher-academy to enroll or learn more. Join me there because spots are limited. Don't wait. Lead her here. And so when everything is urgent, nothing is strategic. You need to be able to set those times so that you can start to focus and think, how am I going to get all of this done? That's where strategy comes into play. And as an effective leader, strategy has to always be top of mind. Here's the third thing I want you to consider. When your calendar controls you, when your calendar and what you do rules your day to day, your vision starts to suffer. Now, I often say in the Robbins Nest and in the OG Robbins Nest, right, the household, if it's not on my calendar, it just does not get done. If I can't keep all of these different things, I have literally 3 different people's calendar going on in my brain at the same time, right? My husband, I have 2 kids in the household, and then if I throw myself into the mix, it's just not going to happen. And so it's really important for me to always make sure my calendar not only is up to date, but it's also color coded depending on who I'm dealing with, right? And so if I know this about myself, why in the world would I be adding everything to my calendar? Because now not only does my strategy suffer, but the vision to obtain the strategy starts to suffer. As a leader, part of what your responsibility is to be able to cast vision. As a leader, not only are you casting the vision for yourself, for the organization, for those team members who report to you, because perhaps they're aspiring to something greater, but as you are casting the vision, then you need to also be able to articulate how that vision can start to come forward. And you can't do that if you have weak boundaries. All right. This leads me to my key point. Saying yes to everything is saying no to something else. Saying yes to everything is saying no to sustainability. And saying yes to everything is a surefire way of a pathway to burnout, one that we are no longer going to be taking. So, why are boundaries the advantage, right? Why are boundaries the advantage that all of us should be looking at? Even why are boundaries the leadership advantage, right? Let's already go there. So, non-negotiable boundaries are not just barriers, but they really are structures that we can start to put in place. They're structures that we can put in place that literally can start to support your highest priorities. However, you have decided to set the day, or the time, or the instance, or the moment. And as a leader, when I have clear boundaries, I'm able to then articulate those boundaries to those who I support. So here's something to keep in mind. When I have clear boundaries, they now, and when it comes to my team who work with me, they now can gain more focus and be strategic and clear on what their task might be. So ask yourself, all right, does my team understand the importance of the boundaries that I'm putting in place? Do they realize that it's not solely just to make the work go on or be more arduous, but it really is to put things in place to support all of us? When I'm able and I have, as a leader, established clear boundaries, the team then can solve problems more independently. Now, if you listen to the last episode, I shared with you how we have a recent high school graduate, which meant that I literally took like a week away from the office because I had to do all the things in preparation for the big day. So, what did that mean? That meant I had to trust the team that was in place, the individuals who had been hired, those who know that we operate from a place of consistency so that the work would get done in an efficient way. I also them am modeling for them trust. I'm modeling trust for the team that I work with on a day-to-day basis. I'm modeling for them that I believe that if any problem comes up, you are independent enough and you can solve it. And if you're not 100% sure, when I get back, we'll figure it out together, right? And so meetings now become more purposeful. It's not just solely like it's on the schedule, it's Tuesday, we meet every Wednesday. No, but when we're coming together, what is the objective behind it? What is the strategy behind this meeting? Do we have an agenda in place? One of my corporate clients, I love the fact that they focus on daily meetings, but they're stand-up meetings, and they're no more than 15 minutes apiece. It forces individuals to get to the point, and it also forces individuals to come with their idea already in place, my comment already fleshed out. Here's the big takeaway that we're looking to achieve today. It actually has allowed their teams to be more efficient and how they're showing up because I have 15 minutes to get this idea out. Now, doesn't mean that they use the full 15 minutes. No, they use the allotted time that has been set. And if they get finished with the ideas and sharing before then let's just be done with the matter, right? But if 15 minutes has creeped up upon us and we still have a few more things that need to be shared or said, then they need to roll over to the next day because we have established that this is a boundary for us. We also need to keep in mind that productivity increases without sacrificing wellness. Now, I love Parkinson's law, which says the amount of time that you give a task, you will fill it. And so if I know that I have 20 minutes to record this podcast episode, or I have 45 minutes to do this or conduct this research, I'm literally saying to my brain that at the end of this time, allotted time, we're done with this task. And so, that being the case, I need to be as strategic as possible. I need to be as intentional as possible. I need to get it done so that I can move on to the next thing. Because at the end of this timer, this 20-minute, 45-minute, an hour long timer that comes, that's it. And so, this is part of the reason why, if you've ever found yourself like, gosh, why does it take all day for me to clean the house on a Saturday? Or why does it take all day for the lawn to get mowed? Well, part of the reason being is because you have allotted that time for it instead of saying, I'm going to take the next 20 minutes to clear up this space. And when it's done, it's done. So here's what happens. There's a ripple effect that starts to happen and go through the organization. When you start to put boundaries in place, people feel empowered. Empowering people know how to prioritize. Empowering people also start to communicate with intention. Remember, you have 15 minutes for that stand-up meeting. At the end of those 15 minutes, whomever is walking away. If you've ever found yourself in a meeting, perhaps with the CEO of the organization, their time is limited. So if they've given you 30 minutes, take 20 and give back change, right? Because you want to communicate with intention and you want to operate from a place of clarity so that you can give them that change back, not chaos. So that means you have to go in to the conversation knowing what you want that outcome to be. Okay, so here's how you can start to create non-negotiable boundaries as a leader. And not only non-negotiable boundaries, but ones that stay in place, ones that stick. Because it's real easy to find ourselves like, I'm going to do it for a couple of days, see how it works, and then we go back to what's comfortable. Remember, our brains are designed to protect us. And this being the case, it's always going to go back to what feels most comfortable because those have been the habits that you've had in place. But I believe that you can start to shift those habits with a little bit of practice. So, the very first thing you need to keep in mind is boundaries must be communicated. If they're not communicated, then nobody knows what you're working towards, right? And once boundaries are communicated, then they have to be respected. And just like, tap into your inner Aretha, right? And the more that you can respect the boundaries, the greater outcomes start to happen. And those boundaries are finally upheld with consistency. Being consistent is probably the most difficult thing to do, right? Because again, we go back to what's comfortable, we go back to what's normal, we go back to where we've always operated from. So how do you start? Well, number one, you want to start to audit what your commitments are. This is a great place to be able to put an Eisenhower matrix in place, right? So what do I need to decide? Where do I need to delegate? Are there things that I need to delete, right? And being able to work your way all the way through that Eisenhower matrix. So then you are able to determine what your next steps are. Where do you need to have as your starting point? What's on your plate does not always have to align with your role. However, it should align with your values and it should be strategic. And if you cannot answer the question, does this align with my values? Is this going to help me to be more strategic, especially as you're working through that Eisenhower matrix? Then you have an opportunity to make some adjustments. And so the more you can audit what your commitments are, the easier it becomes. So it may be you've always volunteered in this particular location or place or did this thing, but in this season of your life, you're having to take a step back. So you're having to delete that responsibility off of your plate because you just don't have time to be able to do it. The thing that I appreciate when it comes to auditing my personal commitments is I realize that everything is temporary, right? I may have to say no right now, but that doesn't mean that I can't come back to something in the future. Number two, this being the case, I want to define what are my non-negotiables. What are my non-negotiables? So, for instance, one of non-negotiable that I have is I very rarely take a morning meeting before 9 a.m. Very, very rarely. And I realize that's a place of privilege, right? But part of the reason why that is a hard boundary for me is I like to be able to have my morning routine. I want to have time to pray. I want to have time to read my books of support. I want to have time to read my Bible. I also want to have time to exercise, right? I know this about myself. I'm a better leader and I show up in a better disposition when I work out. So it may be going out and going for a walk, riding the Peloton bike in the morning, doing something with weights, strength training, whatever that might be. And because I know I want to have those things in place, and I like to be able to see my daughter off to school, right? We have one now who, is still in school. The end of the school year hasn't come yet at the time of this recording. So throughout the day or throughout the weeks, I like to be able to see her off to school, get her ready, make sure she's good to go, reminding her how amazing she is. And then my son, I would drive him to school. And so once he starts his college program, that probably won't change. And so, this being the case, I need to put things in place that will allow me to have those non negotiables. Something else you might want to think about for yourself is not checking your phone first thing in the morning, right? Don't just turn over after you wake up and grab the phone, or not checking email first thing in the morning, or having email box that you check. So, from 9 to 11 is where I deal with email. After that, I don't deal with it again until the end of the day, whatever the case might be. You also may want to think about how can you protect your deep work focus. I love scheduling on my calendar moments of deep work focus. I literally will use like focus as an option on my iPhone. Or if you don't have an iPhone, you could turn the phone over to airplane mode. The calls will still come in, right? I'm happy to send people to voicemail because this is my deep work focus time. The thing we know about brain research is it takes 3 times as long once you have to shift your perspective after every interruption. So if I'm in a deep work focus, somebody comes over, is talking to me, asks me a question, whatever the case might be, I now have to restart that cycle over again. What if you were to schedule that time in your calendar that is uninterrupted? What if you scheduled your lunch on your calendar? This is a non negotiable. You need to be able to eat each day, right? This might be why we're showing up hangry in some of these meetings. And so, this being the case, if your team knows that this is a block of time that you've earmarked, it makes a big difference. This goes directly to number 3, which is communicating with confidence. Now, let your team know here is why I'm doing this. I am doing this and I am establishing these boundaries because they matter. I'm establishing these boundaries to help with my personal performance, which then helps to benefit our work collectively. Support your team members and also setting times on their calendars to be their deep work focused times. Realize if people are working behind closed doors, that is not necessarily a symbol that of disrespect to the organization or, I don't want to be bothered, but it really could be that they are using this as their deep work focused time. You may even encourage, if you have shared calendars in your department or with your team, that they earmark that on the calendar, literally blocking it out. So if I'm going to do like a calendar check, oh, that's their deep work focus time. Let me leave that to them. I'll make sure not to set an appointment or ask them to have an appointment during that time. Which leads me to point number 4, which is to hold the boundary. Boundaries are bae. If you have not picked up a copy of my book, Everyday Business, Conquering What Seems Impossible, I'm going to put a link down in the description here so that you can grab it, because this is exactly one of the things and one of the topics that I speak to in the book, Everyday Business, Conquering What Seems Impossible. How do you hold the boundary? It's real easy to start to like, well, I'll just, curve a little on this side, or it's just one meeting. What's it going to hurt? But please understand, a boundary that's frequently broken isn't a boundary. Let me say that again. A boundary that's frequently broken isn't a boundary, but instead it's a preference. It's a preference. So be honest with yourself. Is this a boundary that I'm setting? And if so, let's maintain it. And if not, acknowledge the fact that it's a preference. And there's nothing wrong with that either. So use that voicemail, use that deep work focus time, communicate to your team, let them know what's all happening. How do we do this? We lead by example. So when leaders lead by example. They lead by setting boundaries. They give others permission to do the same. This is especially crucial in a mid-sized business or in a smaller organization, right? You want to be able to um, acknowledge and applaud setting those boundaries because that directly correlates to the culture that's being shaped, the culture that's being established by the individuals that work there. And so remember, culture is always more important than policy, right? Culture speaks more so to the behaviors that show up than policy. And so if I understand, I heard somebody recently say, if you want to see people make changes, make it a policy, right? And so if you start to show up differently in that this is just how we work, this is our way of working, this is how we show up, this is how we support one another, you don't have to make it a policy because it's the culture, it's the behaviors of how people operate on a day-to-day basis. By setting and modeling healthy limits, you create that culture of clarity. You create that culture of communication and you create a culture of trust, which at the end of the day, I believe is one of the things that's most important. Your team, they know what you expect. So many times I'll hear leaders say, I tell my team, just trust me, just trust me. But what we need to understand is vulnerability comes before trust. Trust does not come before vulnerability. And how do I show myself being vulnerable? By being able to accept feedback, by being able to communicate to my team, I'm setting these boundaries, and here's the why. Because when they understand the why, the what makes sense. And then they can work through the how by supporting them as well and being able to establish their own boundaries in the ways that they work and the ways that they show up on a day-to-day basis too. When we understand that if this is the expectation I've set for the team I'm working with, people will rise to that expectation. Wherever you lay the bar, they will rise to it. And so set the bar high. Let them know, demonstrate on a day-to-day basis. Hey, y'all, when we're working here, we set boundaries for one another so that when we show up in our world of work, it allows us to be more efficient, allows us to show up better for our clients or customers or other team members, whatever the case might be. Here's one final thought. I would like to invite you to remember boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are bae, right? Boundaries are not selfish. They are strategic and they are invisible structures that help you to have sustainable leadership. This is the second of 5 pillars of sustainable leadership. I'm going to invite you, come on back. Join me so that you can learn more about the last 3 pillars of sustainable leadership. Stay leaned in, not leaning out. And if your organization, perhaps you're struggling with overwhelm or scope creep, or maybe even how to set expectations and boundaries, give us a call. We would be happy to assist you. There is a link down below in the show notes or somewhere around this video that will allow you to book a complimentary company culture map. This will allow you to book a complimentary company culture map. What is that exactly? Well, it's a consult and an assessment so that you can really figure out where are some of the blind spots that we have in our organization. Do we have some challenges setting boundaries? Or maybe it's showing up in our communication with one another. Or where are our leadership rhythms that we might need to fine tune a little bit more? We're happy to come in and assist you. This has been another amazing episode of the Grace Over Grind podcast. Did you enjoy this particular episode? If so, please, 1, be sure to like, 2, share, and 3, subscribe so that you never miss another episode. Pass this on to another lady leader that you know who could use this information on today. And as I always say, from process to practice, grab your stilettos and let's go. Thanks again for joining, and I'll see you soon. I'll see you in the next episode.